Hi guys, Nick here from Intuitive Tennis. In today's video, I want to discuss the most important technical elements of Rafael Nadal's forehand. Also, is the Nadal forehand something that you can copy? Check out today's video and find out. Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal arguably have two of the greatest forehands in the history of the game. Nadal's forehand, however, is rarely copied and often labeled as extreme. It is actually far more conventional in some technical aspects than people tend to believe. One technical element of Nadal's forehand that's rather conventional is his grip. So Rafael Nadal does not have an extreme forehand grip. He uses a semi-Western forehand grip, which is the most commonly used forehand grip worldwide. There are other players on tour that have far more extreme grips than Nadal, such as Djokovic, Khachanov, and Jack Sock. Nadal's takeback is also rather conventional. There's nothing unorthodox about the way Nadal takes his racket back. So he will have a loop like the majority of other players on tour. He will start with the tip of the racket pointing forward towards the other side, and then he will close the strings upon the racket drop. This part of the swing he had tinkered with in the past. Sometimes he would drop the racket a little bit lower, and other times he would kind of close the strings down towards the ground like Federer. So he has a very conventional takeback. Rafael Nadal has a straight arm forehand, meaning that the arm will straighten out once the racket drops, and then he will maintain the straight arm in the forward phase of the swing all the way to the contact, and even after contact the arm will continue to be straight, and it will start going into a bend when the tip of the racket is pointing towards the sky, and the arm will start going into a bend again. Rafa is not alone with this technique. Other players like Federer, Chung, Verdasco, and Dimitrov also use a straight arm forehand. However, the majority of the players and the ATP Top 100 use a bent arm. And the reason why people label Nadal's forehand as extreme or unconventional is his finish. And it's not to be confused with the reverse finish. The reverse forehand finish is a term labeled by Robert Lansdorp, and it refers to a forehand that finishes around the same shoulder. And we all do this shot when we get put under pressure. If we catch the ball a little bit late, it's often not planned, it just happens intuitively. We catch the ball a little bit late, and then we simply put the racket up around the same shoulder like this. And what this gives us the ability to swing fast in an upward motion on the ball, and we can get the ball into the court with decent pace. It is, however, very difficult to hit winners this way, and it is more of a defensive shot. The reverse forehand is a shot that every tennis player should have in his or her repertoire. And even the best players in the world, including Federer, will do the reverse forehand shot almost in every game. And this is something that's often not planned. It happens intuitively when the ball gets behind us a little bit. I'm going to try a few out. Let me see here if the ball comes deep enough. Okay, so basically it's a very simple shot to execute. The racket will go over the same shoulder, which happens to be my right shoulder, and we get nice top spin on the ball, and we get to hit it with decent pace, and we can redirect the ball back in play. Oh, this one was actually perfect because it came a little bit faster. This one's perfect too, so you can get the ball back in play. It is, however, very difficult to hit winners with this shot, so this is why I call this more of a defensive shot. Let me try one more. Perfect. Nadal's forehand, however, is not a defensive shot or a reverse follow-through shot. It is an ultra-aggressive shot, and if you ever had the pleasure of watching Nadal play in person, the sound the ball makes when Nadal has a forehand is something that's truly unbelievable. And the ball sounds like it's cracking or exploding. It is something that I haven't seen from any other players that I've watched live, even Federer. So this is a shot that's one of the most deadly weapons in the history of tennis. And the reason why it's not a defensive shot is in Nadal's finish. Nadal does not go over the same shoulder, which would be his left shoulder. See, he finishes across the body like all the other players do as well. So it is not a same shoulder finish. It is an across the body motion where he usually aims for his right ear, and the racket goes in a very vertical way towards his right ear, and then what happens next is the racket flips back around his head. And so this is a big advantage because all players finish across the body. There's different styles. Some players will finish over the shoulder like this, the Djokovic style, or some players will finish the Federer way around the elbow, or some players will finish around the waist like Gael Monfils. Nadal is very similar in that aspect, that he also finishes across, but his racket path is a lot more vertical. So he goes towards his right ear and then back around his head like this. And his intention is to get the ball as high as possible and also hit it as hard as possible. Rafa is truly unique in this finish. I have not seen many other players have this around the head type of finish. Novak Djokovic is the only other player that I've seen finish this way sometimes. And I believe this finish came to Nadal intuitively because of Nadal's intention on his forehand. His intention, it was always to get the ball as high as possible and to hit it as hard as possible. And he has a big advantage being a lefty and hitting that high, hard, high bouncing forehand to a righty's backhand is truly an absolute nightmare to a right-hander because now the right-hander can try to take the ball early off the bounce, which will probably result in a lot of mistakes, or he chooses to back up and let the ball drop, and that ball is not going to drop very much, and he's going to end up hitting defensive backhands. So this Rafael Nadal forehand, with the fact that he's a lefty, is truly a nightmare for right-handers. What is the role of the wrist on the Nadal forehand? Well, he will sometimes use the wrist and sometimes not. So Nadal will use the wrist if he goes for an angled shot. He will have the wrist go up this way. Or if he hits one of his banana shots where the ball curves into the court, he will actually use the wrist a little bit more like that. But on most of his super hard, deep forehands that bounce high, his wrist is actually passive, and we can see this in super slow motion footage. After the contact, Nadal's wrist will remain passive, and when the racket gets about right here, this is where the wrist gets activated. So Nadal uses a passive wrist on his hardest forehands, and when he goes more for a finesse forehand where he's curving the ball into the court, when he's hitting an angle or a topspin lob, he will use the wrist a little bit more. Another example where he uses the wrist could be a low ball. If he's flipping the ball up from a lower spot, he might use the wrist a little bit more here to get the ball up. He's practicing. So Rafa will finish between his elbow and his shoulder when he's practicing most of the time. He will go around his body like this, across, and then finish between his elbow and his shoulder around here. However, once he plays a match, instincts kick in and he's trying to inflict maximum pain onto his opponents, and his natural finish of going towards his right ear and then back around the head like this comes out. So I'm speculating that when Nadal's practicing, he's trying to hit the ball a little bit harder, a little bit straighter, and he's hitting back and forth with the other person. But as soon as he starts playing points, his instincts are not only to hit the ball as hard as possible, but also to hit the ball as high as possible, because he knows that when he plays like that, he can inflict the most pain onto his opponents. Is the Nadal finish something you can copy as a recreational player? Well, I think it's going to be very difficult to get control on the ball if we try to attempt the Nadal finish. It is a lot easier to get a proper shape of the ball where the ball goes up and then down if we have more of a conventional finish. Around the shoulder, in between the shoulder and the elbow, or even around the elbow. In my experience, when we hit the ball very hard and we go towards the opposing ear like this, like Nadal does, there's a tendency to spray the ball long and to overhit it. So I think this shot requires a lot of practice, and I would not recommend it for recreational players. I'm going to attempt to hit a few Nadal forehands, and I'm also going to hit a few of my own forehands. I do not have a straight arm forehand like Rafa does. I play with a bent arm forehand, but still it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the ball when we hit it the Rafa way. So first, let me hit a few of my regular forehands, and we'll see what happens to the ball. And I'm going to try to go inside out first. Okay. You see, I have a fairly a low trajectory over the net. I have more of a tendency to hit the ball straight. Okay, a few more. Okay, that was better. So a couple more. That was better. And let me try to hit a few inside in. Oh, the ball machine was hitting deep. Here we go. And here, last one. Okay, and now let's go the Rafa way. Let's see what happens. I'm going inside out first. Oh, that was better. And again, Rafa forehand. I'm trying to aim for my left ear. And then back around the head. I sprayed this one. Try it again. That was better. You can see the height is significantly more over the net. There was a shank. Let's go inside in. Happens there. Okay. A little better. And there's an interesting leftward trajectory when I go inside in. You can see how the ball curves slightly to the left after it bounces. Right there. And last one. Inside in the Rafa way. Good. A couple of interesting notes about me trying to attempt the Nadal forehand was that number one, I had a slight leftward trajectory on the ball when I tried to go inside in and actually inside out as well. And this is great for Rafa because he's lefty, and when he hits this shot cross court like this, his ball is actually going even further away from the opponent's backhand. So this is one thing that's an additional bonus from hitting the Rafa forehand. One disadvantage I found was that I did miss 2 or 3 balls long, and that's always worrisome for me if I'm missing balls long in practice situation under no pressure. I shouldn't really be making those mistakes. So again, the difficulty in trying to hit the Rafa style forehand is that the ball might spray long, and it does require a lot of practice. Another interesting thing about me trying the Nadal forehand was that I felt a little bit of a strain in my bicep and tricep area. Now this could be due to 2 reasons. Number one, I don't really practice the shot, and I've never really tried it in this particular way. So I'm not used to hitting it in that style, and this could be why I'm getting a little bit of strain in these areas. Also, I do not have a Rafa's bicep, obviously. I got pretty skinny arms, so my genetic predisposition probably doesn't allow me to hit it quite like Rafa. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that like button, write a comment in the section below. I will be happy to respond, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.